It was a bit of a gray day here at Hicks Lake, and also very windy and threatening to rain. So I decided to hike along the trail and find a spot by the water to do some sketching. We were sitting out of the wind, so that was nice. And as you can see, first of all, I did a rough sketch. I like to call it the bones of the drawing, just in pencil. And now I'm going in with a little more detail and working with my pen. I'll certainly add a lot more to the rocks in terms of texture and shape now that I'm happy with their size and location. I hope you can hear the waves washing up along the shore. It's really nice to be sitting here and just kind of enjoying the area and listening to the water. Sometimes it's very soft, but the winds seem to come up in gusts and then it gets quite rough. As you can see, once I've got the shapes in place, I use my pen to do a lot of the little detailed bits that I want to be sure and include in the drawing. Some of these little branches and leaves, they add that softness to the rocks, and they also are directional elements that help to move the eye around the page. From there, I went to a wash in the backgrounds, and if you notice, I'm keeping it quite soft as it ends up. I'm not going up into sky, and the background further back is not of interest to my drawing. Here I want to focus on what's front and center and more the midground and foreground of where I'm sitting. As the artist, you get to make these choices, and certainly when I'm outdoor sketching, I make them all the time. As I move forward, I want you to notice the painting process I'm using, mixing a lot of my colors on the paper. First of all, I find this mixed media paper works fairly well for that. The paint does sit near the surface and will lift and move easily, which is great when you're mixing the colors, but at the same time, you have to be very cognizant of the fact that when you want that paint to be dry, it needs to be dry. So for the first type of mixing that I like to do, it's mixing the wet into wet. And so this you have to move very quickly, especially when you're working outdoors, as the wind and the sun will dry your paint very quickly. Part of my process today is also to try a different type of mixture for my grays and darks. Usually I use a burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, but sometimes I find that gives me a very dark, cold kind of gray. And so for today, I'm mixing a yellow and a red and a blue together to get my gray. I find that this way you can push the gray to be a little warmer, with the yellow being more prominent in it, and you can also push it to be colder by making it more bluer. It also can be layered, as you can see on that one rock, where it can be quite dark when it's 2 layers. And on the rock in the front that I'm painting right now, you can see I got that gray quite light. Also note, while I'm talking about grays, to take a look at the moss, how I'm mixing in those colors on the page. While they're still wet, first I put down that yellow, and next I will begin to add another color, and at some points overlap the yellow, and other points just carrying it through. Watch carefully and you'll see what I mean. In working in this manner, it also gives me an opportunity to create the lumps and bumps that you would naturally see in moss as it sits on a rock. In some areas it's quite thick, and in other areas it's very thin. So you get that light, dark, bumpy look to it. Working with the little leaves, you get a chance to see how you can play with your greens a bit. These little leaves up at the top are almost silhouetted, so they can be quite dark, almost a black green, where the other leaves that are closer in and shaded are more the light lime green colors. This helps to give you different hot and cold colors as well as light and dark to vary your leaves and give your a good impression of what they are doing. This log is also a good opportunity to mix your colors wet on wet. You can see I put in some dark wet grays and then add some lighter grays to them as well. And I also, if you watch carefully, you'll see me drop in some red. That really does give that darkness to the log, and at the same time gives it a lot of warm dark. Of course, mixing your paints on the paper doesn't mean just adding pigment to the paper. You can also do some lifting as well. And this is some of the things you'll see me do here as well with not only the rocks, but with this log. By first painting an area and deciding some of it is a little bit too dark, I have lifted some of the color out and left it lighter. Here's the final picture, and you can see, looking at it, some of the things that I talked about where I've lifted some of the color out, also where I've added the red to the darks. But really, the big takeaway for me for this particular picture is the warmer grays. Notice how much warmer those grays are. I hope you enjoyed sketching with me along the shoreline of Hicks Lake. Max and I had a great time, and it cleared up and we got to go swimming later. Wendy teaches outdoor sketching classes in the summer, and she teaches in her studio and online throughout the year. Wendy produces original work in pencil and in watercolor. She completes commission work, particularly pet portraits, and produces cards and prints from some of her work.